睛，你会怎么做？他倒是告诉我，我怕听不见。以前起的火把是你式的魔法，慢慢的渲染我的心逐渐。你举起千斤更难逃脱，抬头看天空，暗中在飘落。可以是歌手，是作家，现实在行市，当然那些爱情小说。雪花让我伴着你左右，爱情在燃烧，看着你火候。你最爱看太阳落下，我明天。
Good morning, everybody. I hope this video finds you well. Today, I want to talk about some of my prototype efforts. For those of you who are unaware, I am an engineer with degrees in mechanical, aerospace, and electrical engineering. And even though I did work in Majestic, which is my black side of me, on my day side of me, the public persona was one of a engineering manager and high up in engineering ranks, moving factories back and forth all over the globe, mostly from America to China. And in this position, I was able to do many things. And in my various positions, I was able to do many things. And I have patents, and I've been a lot of tinker. I've always been quite the tinkerer. So imagine you're in my shoes, and you've had this tremendous experience going through a teleporter, and you pretty much have a real good idea of how it works. Would you want to build one? Well, I attempted to build one. I really did. And I wrote something. You'll read a little bit of it maybe in this coming October or maybe November. But I wrote a little blurb, and I'm providing this stuff out here to you in the patron community. I actually did build a teleportation unit prototype. I really did. At that time, I was, I don't know how I could say things without letting loose too much information, but I was in charge of a prototype lab and new R&D group in a company I worked for in Boston. And I also did a lot of travel going to China. And one of the, I did lots of work at that time with consumer electronics. And we were starting to branch out and do some things on medical equipment. And I had visited a company in Guangdong, or Guangzhou. And they made MRI imaging equipment. And I really took a liking to their my equivalents over there. You know, the scientists and the R&D folk and everything. And if you're in this kind of industry, there's a lot of swaps that you do and everything. And I was able to acquire some old broken pieces of prototypes of MRI equipment that they had. And these are expensive units, by the way. You can buy a brand new one, but it's going to cost you almost $1 million. But I managed to get a few, and I worked with them, not moving them per se, but running some experiments for me. So if you can imagine this, I went to a manufacturer of MRI equipment. I went into the R&D group, and I conducted a project with them using my company that was sending me over there as the excuse for them to do certain project work with me. And the cover, of course, this is a little bit, don't judge me, guys, but, you know, I said, you know, I just wanted to run some tests on their equipment, and because we're thinking about having a American version of these things, and so on and so forth. And they would go ahead and use this machine in their own test labs and run it. And what I wanted to do was run it with them, because there's no way I can have this big, huge equipment purchased from me, moved on over to Boston. And I'm sure that there would be a lot of eyebrows raised, let me tell you. So what happened is there was a couple of their prototypes, and I worked with them to flush out the details on the prototypes. So I generated the protocols, and I actually had their people run the initial tests. What I did is I mounted 8. I probably could have done 6 or whatever, but my budget was a little bit open for that. So I used 8 gravity sensors and compiled that into a data collection unit, and ran the MRI device with some modifications, and one of the modifications was a much higher flux than the design parameters that they had, and they happen to already have these models. Very easy for me to have a higher flux version. So from the technicians and from the engineers over at the plant, they thought I was doing a legitimate project to have a high magnetic field generation, and then I'm monitoring it using gravitational sensors. And they said, "What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do?" I says, "Well, this is going to be something that's going to," and I made up some excuse, and they were like, okay, we understand about these kinds of things, and they were cool with it. Okay, it didn't take them a lot of time, and they ran a couple experiments. The bottom line was we took a old prototype, we enhanced it and really increased the power of the generated magnetic flux, and I ran the thing with gravitational sensors and during operation. And to the observer, it just seems like you're just doing a regular test on an MRI sensor. Now, this was not something big that you can walk through. Instead, this was big enough for a head to go through, maybe about, so big, all right? And we cranked up the magnetic flux to almost as high as you could go. And then I says, I want to try a couple of things. And so, and I had it on film. Believe it or not, I had it on film. In those days, we didn't have, our cameras couldn't record, at least mine couldn't record. Instead, I had a little movie camera, and I recorded it. I made a little incline, a board on an incline, perhaps a 30-degree angle. I don't remember what exactly the angle was. And I rolled a can, I forget what it was, corn or peas or whatever, it was just a can, down. No, I got to tell you, cans are hard to find in China. They don't have them like canned vegetables like they have over here. But you can get some imported cans. Anyways, I got a can. I forget what it was. Might have been green beans or peaches. I don't know what the hell it was. Okra, perhaps. And rolled it down. And it went right in through the magnetic field and right out of the magnetic field. No problem. No changes. Nothing happened. Okay? And they all laughed at me. They said, well, what do you expect is going to happen? If this is going to be for a person, you know? I says, just give me a second. And then that was it. And then it was pretty quiet. It was pretty quiet for a while. I still stayed in contact with them, but and by the way, you got to keep in mind I'm in contact with lots of other inventors and stuff as part of my role, and I did stuff, like a coolant for a bedroom that wasn't using an air conditioner. Instead, it uses piezoelectric thermoclines. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point here is that my tests, I did run these tests, and the can went right through this high strength magnetic flux and came out unscathed. Fine. Big deal, right? Then the next thing I did was the timing. You have to have the timing. But when the can goes into the center of the vortex, you have to switch the vortex to take into account a totally different gravitational reading. And so we did it a little bit cruder. We had to, because the thing was rotating, what we had to do, we had to make sure that the movement of the can rolling down the board would match the movement of the, I want to say cyclotron, but the MRI circular generating field, so that the two met at a certain predetermined moment, and during that predetermined moment, we then would change the we embedded frequencies upon the magnetic field that was different than without it. Okay, so if you can imagine, I just took some other random frequencies and everything, and we just bombarded it. Now, it wasn't that different, okay? It was actually kind of a hard thing to figure out, but for a very short, brief period of time, we had a little bit of a ramp up, and then the frequencies, the hills, and we amplified some frequency numbers, and we changed different ones. So in the first part, as the can is going into the chamber, everything's fine, and then when it's halfway, it suddenly we had different amplifications of certain the certain fluxes. So the flux pattern changed about halfway, and I put that in, and the first result, after we did that, nothing quite happened. So we went over and we tweaked it a little bit more. Still nothing happened. These things happen all the way. This is the way prototypes work. You have to kind of get the bugs out. Maybe on this 20th try. And remember, I've got other legitimate business I had to do, so I couldn't spend all my time on this. I let the techs run the stuff. They said nothing was happening. And what was I looking for and all this other kind of stuff. I said, just run the goddamn tests. All right. And but anyways, we tweaked a couple things, and we had to add we had to change the protocol a little bit of when we changed the field and alternated the field. And we did it, and I was there, and we rolled down another can, and it went in, and it like boomeranged out. So we knew we were doing up to something. And then again, I had to leave. I had to go back. I had regular life. And I still stayed in contact with the guys. And then we went on over. We tried it again. We made a couple more modifications. And then we did it, and we rolled the can down, and it disappeared. Everybody thought that with these modifications, which is a higher magnetic flux plus the adaptation of alternate frequencies to reflect a different geomagnetic location, that I was just boomeranging the can off to somewhere else. So everybody's thinking it's going in and it's shooting somewhere in the room. They can't find it. Now, this was in a warehouse, unair-conditioned warehouse, by the way, and they couldn't find the can. They said, "We're really sorry. It banged out, it boomeranged out, and we lost your can. You'll have to get a new can again." So this time I went and I watched it, and it didn't bang out. It made a sound, like a little pop. Maybe that was my imagination, but it disappeared. And whenever we would roll a can down there, it didn't bang or boomerang or fly out anywhere else. It just simply disappeared. No, there was no white flash or anything like that. It just rolled down and gone. And I think that that little tiny sound we're having was an effect of maybe the equipment that we were using. So let me reiterate here for a second here. I was working with a factory in China to develop this teleportation system, but I was telling them what I was doing was developing a improved image resonance system for potentially augmented cyborgs or androids, which would be a mental biological something. And they didn't know the information. All that they knew is that I was providing these cans to test on, but they didn't know what was really in the cans or anything. And that I was just testing these things and seeing what happens. They thought that at the point of time with the modifications that we were reaching a problem because it was throwing the cans out somewhere in the room. Nobody can find the cans, but that didn't matter. You know, there's stacks of pipes and metal plating and glass over there, and just piles of boxes with bolts and junk. Things could get lost in this warehouse. So they thought that somehow or another the problem was that it was too powerful and that nothing was going to happen. So they think it was pretty much a failure. I, on the other hand, saw this as very promising. Now, after this successful test, I continued to work, and I was getting ready for my next trip out there, where I wanted to talk to them about, see if we could make a much bigger machine and to do all this. And instead, what happened was I got laid off at my current job. And once I get laid off at the current job, all my work associated with that project and that company was now NDE, non-disclosure. And even though what I was doing was a little bit on the sly, I didn't have the opportunity to do anything else. I communicated with the guys. I said, thank you very, very much, but they kind of let me go. But next time I'm in China, we're going to chat up a storm, and we'll have some good times and all that. It actually took maybe 5 to 7 years later that I went back to China, and I looked up the guys, and they all had moved. And I don't know what happened to anything else because my contacts over at the factory are pretty much gone. And life took on a new form for me. And that's the way life is sometimes. You might be really big on some project or something you're doing, but when everything changes, it really changes, and you can't follow up on any of this stuff. And that's what happened in my case. A lot of things happened, a lot of things changed, and, well, there you have it. Did I make a teleportation device? I think I did. I think I moved these cans of vegetables somewhere. Where? I have no clue. I just radically modified the frequencies on a whim, trying to get some kind of tangible change, and I got something to disappear. So you might say that I made a disappearing ray or something. I don't know. And anyways, so it was gone. All right. And I think I created a teleporter, a transporter. Where it is, who knows? Maybe it's back in time. Maybe one of these days, maybe, a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a Velociraptor was moving around in the woods and suddenly a can of peas showed up in front of them in their path. I don't know. Or maybe it fell and hit a head of fell from the sky and hit the head of somebody walking down the street in the year 4053. Who knows what happened? But that's kind of the story, and that's what I did. Did I make any patents on this? No. Did I do any white papers on this? No. If any of you follow any of my writings, you know that it's particularly dangerous for people with new ideas that may shake the boat of the powers that be, that they can be pretty ruthless. The people who were successful in electric cars and electric motorcycles and electric buses all were either forcibly bought out or killed. Okay, same thing with medicines. And now the latest thing is LGBTQ. Try to find any published science fiction work that doesn't have LGBTQ stuff in it nowadays. It's ruthless in the United States. It's totally ruthless. So just be advised that that's kind of what's going on and what I did. I'm putting this on Patreon, and I hope you enjoy this little discussion of what I did. That was back in the day. And would I do it again? No, not really. It was something, sometimes call it fate, or maybe call it my world line template. I happened to be at the right place at the right time to play around and muck with this kind of stuff, and I took advantage at that time. But it wasn't long enough for me to develop a full-scale system. Though I do think that one or two of the other engineers I was working with, the Chinese engineers, probably were thinking that along those lines. And that was that. I hope you enjoyed this little chat. And take care. Know that I believe in you. Be kind to dogs and cats, and whatever you do, just be the best you can possibly be, because I believe in you. Bye-bye.
The youth them tired living on the bread line. The money no excuse to rob the blind. Our weapon in a party, pass it.